Hey, thanks for dropping by to the Planners on Purpose podcast, created by Naomi Tucker, CMP. Now, this space is for the event planners to encourage and empower you so that you can fully live your life on purpose. So before we dig in, please take a moment to subscribe so you get future shows. Now, here she comes, your host, Naomi.
Hello, everyone. This is Naomi with the Planners on Purpose podcast. Thank you so much for being here. I hope all is well and that you're moving forward, let's say, with purpose in 2024. The year has started off with quite some intensity for a lot of people. I don't know if you feel it, but it seems like everyone is just trying to recoup for some lost time last year. Not necessarily sure what has happened in the past year with everyone, but I sense that people are really making some big intentions as they're moving forward into the new year. Now, this is going to be a pretty amazing year. I can feel that it's going to be great. Event professionals are setting their intentions, their goals, and one of which is to become a certified meeting professional. And that is pretty exciting. So I thought I would continue this week talking about the CMP and putting out some episodes to support those that are really trying to get their CMP in this year. We've talked about this on the podcast. Actually, our previous episode was really about the CMP designation and if it is right for you. So if you're a person that's wondering, what is this CMP? What is the Certified Meeting Professional designation that everyone is talking about? And is it good for me? Is it right for me? Go back to that previous episode and you'll be able to see if it's something that you wanted to pursue for your career. That particular episode, it lays out how beneficial it's going to be for you, the visibility benefits, salary benefits, networking benefits. There's so many benefits to getting your CMP. So check that episode out. In this episode, I wanted to focus on how you should study for the CMP. If that's something you're going to do this year, you will find this particular episode very beneficial. And if you're someone that has already obtained your CMP, perhaps it will help bring up the nostalgia for you of what it took for you to go ahead and get your CMP, how hard you worked, how you had to study. And if you're someone that can connect with how you actually studied and received your CMP, definitely reach out to me and let me know what you think about these tips. If there's things that I missed, if there's things that have worked for you, would love to be able to hear that. So we're going to get right to it in how you can study for your CMP. If you're an event planner or professional that's looking to get their CMP, then I suggest you grab a sheet of paper and a pen or pencil and let's get to it. Now, to start, the Events Industry Council, or AKA the EIC, they note that you should get studying right away for your CMP. So that means don't delay on waiting on your application to be approved. There can be so much material and it can be overwhelming. So to give yourself and allow yourself time to be able to process the information and really learn this information, you possibly want to get started earlier than your application being approved. So I always suggest to spot review the application so that you know that you're not largely off track for getting your application approved. There is a base minimum of years and minimum of experience that you should have in the event industry. So if you're finding that maybe you're years off from getting that experience, perhaps you want to wait a bit before you buy the materials and start studying. But if you know in general that you have the experience, that it needs to go ahead and fill out your application and get it approved, and that you have the years in the industry, then I would just say go ahead, start filling out your application, but don't delay on getting your materials and getting started to review and studying that material. So that's just a heads up. Now, when you want to get your study material, we're going to talk a little bit about that because all of the materials that you need can be gained from the Events Industry Council website. So that makes that website pretty much a one-stop shop for being able to get those materials. However, I have found that sometimes when you go to the EIC website, perhaps some things are sold out. When I went to the website to, let's say, get the PCMA new edition, that particular edition showed as sold out on the EIC website. So I would suggest if you can't find it there, then go to Amazon. You might find perhaps a used copy or a new copy there on Amazon. So that's just another self-check. You can also go to the PCMA website shop as well to also find that particular edition if you're not finding it. So those are a few different areas that you can find the materials, but definitely start at the Events Industry Council website. Now, make sure as a note not to wait too long because sometimes they don't always come within the day, especially if you're going to order directly from the Events Industry Council website. It is a pretty quick turnaround, but I would just say plan on having your copy within a week's time. And then even with the Amazon copies, you might not want to think you're going to get your copy within a day. So just allow yourself adequate time to be able to get your copy from whatever source that you're going ahead and purchasing these from. So I want to review what those texts are that you should have in your study, your study toolkit when you're actually going forward to study for your CMP. So the first, let's say, text that you should have is the Events Industry Council Manual. Now, this is the 9th edition manual, and it's a working guide for effective events, meetings, and conventions. This particular text is going to be your source for much of the material that's being offered in the exam. This manual is important because it has all of the information that you need for studying the 10 domains that are covered in the exam. Now, important notes for this manual. It's very nice. I really like the EIC manual. It's nicely laid out in order to show the importance of the material. And when you're studying, it's important to pay attention to things like the bold terminology. Also, there's review questions at the end of each skill that are really key for helping ensure that you understand the materials that are presented. Know the answers to those review questions and really get a good handle on the terminology that is in this manual. All right, moving on to another text that you should have when you're studying for the event for your Certified Meeting Professional exam. The next one is the Events Industry Council Glossary. Now, the glossary that you want to get is this 2019 edition. That is the most recent edition in the EIC toolkit. And this is such a great text to reference if you're wondering what certain words mean when you're going through the EIC manual. It is a glossary and a very well-rounded glossary that you can use as a reference. Now, you might be saying, isn't there a glossary online with EIC? Yes, there is a glossary online and that is free to use. However, I have found that not everything is in the online glossary, or perhaps the exact wording may be harder to find. So if you want to make sure that you're having the complete terminology, I would recommend get the printed version of this glossary and use it when you're studying. Some additional usage of this printed glossary, is that it does have a British English style sheet, which really comes in handy when trying to get more clarity for some of the words that are expressed within the text. So that's also a really great addition that's at the back of that particular glossary. Okay. Lastly is the Professional Meeting Management Guide, 6th edition. Now, this is the last recommended resource for getting your CMP. This book is the one I told you can get from PCMA. You also can possibly get this on Amazon as well as the EIC website. This book, what you should focus on are the learner outcomes and also the discussion questions. It's highly recommended that you have a good handle on terminology as well. Now, some notes, because with the PCMA guide or the Professional Meetings Management Guide, there could be times where there is a slight a different opinion or slight different stance on some of the viewpoints on a certain topic. If you come to that in your study, it's important to know to always lean to the EIC or the Events Industry Council manual and what their stance is on it as your last stop of validation, because they're the administrators of the exam, and that's what you want to take. You want to take theirs as that last stop of information. So those are the 3 materials that you should use in order to study for your CMP, and hopefully you found that was helpful. Now I wanted to talk about some of the tools that will help you and make your study go better when you're taking your CMP. First, it's important that you're organized in your study. I know it feels like going back to school a little bit, but it's really important when you're studying for your CMP. Use the outlines that are provided in the Event Industry Council for each domain. Make sure that you're studying each of those domains and all of the areas within them. It can be useful to really focus on the sections that have the most questions on them first, and then go from there, because those are going to be the big bulks of your study. Study when it makes sense for you, for your mind, for your body. All of us are different. We're uniquely different, and we thrive at different times. So if you're a morning person, study in the morning if that works best. And if you're like me, where my evenings can be a quiet study time that I like to really zero in and read and get things done, then I guess you know when you're studying. It will be in the evening. Don't second guess your body or second guess just how you work, and really try to go with the flow when it comes to that. Now, you're going to need a highlighter. For sure, you're going to be highlighting a lot of text, and you absolutely need to read these texts. I know some people feel as though they possibly don't have to read it. Maybe they can just do the cliff notes at the back of each chapter. That isn't necessarily going to be helpful. It's going to be helpful if you take the time to actually read the full text, highlight areas that you need more understanding or important points. Identify important areas of the text that only really can come through reading the text, things that you didn't really know and you need to remember. Those are the things that you want to make sure that you're highlighting. Also, if you need to come back to a page or an area, the highlights can be very helpful for you to enhance your learning and understand what you need to review. Now, speaking of coming back to a page or an area, in addition to the highlighter, I love Post-it notes or sticky notes to be able to actually help you reference to a page you need to come back to. I'm a big advocate for using them in studying. I use them to study and mark key pages that you need to come back to or important pages. I love using the tab versions of these sticky notes, like the little Post-it note tabs, so that you can use them to either mark the page or also mark a little area, or perhaps there's a definition that you just aren't really clear at and you need to keep reviewing it. You could also use the wide sticky notes for perhaps adding a note to yourself and putting it right in your book so you don't mark on your book. Although I love to write up in my text and in my books, but definitely you can use them to make notations within your text. And then finally, I guess it doesn't go by saying you would need something to write with. So a good pencil. I love using pencils because you might need to erase them. So I would focus on using a pencil so that it can make it easier for you to make any adjustments should you need to do any erasing within your text. You want to make sure that you use your pencils to either write on the sticky notes or, like I said, directly on the text, especially when you're wanting to note something that's a differentiation or something you want to remember. Perhaps you can star something that you want to really keep in mind that you know is very, very important. And again, when you're running into those conflicts with the two texts, you have the ability to possibly use your pencil or a sticky note as a means of just calling that out in your text. Stick to the script. Now, this next one is kind of like a mental note, because I know that when I was studying for my tests, this was very, very helpful, is that you stick to the script. The answers are going to be what the answers are. And although we probably were taught a different way, or perhaps we're working within another genre or niche of events that we're working in, it's important not to fight the answers that, let's say, that EIC or that the Professional Meeting Management Guide is giving us. So we want to stick with their answers and not necessarily lean things in the way of our own reasoning, our own learnings, right? We didn't create the test. We didn't create the exam. So we need to focus on the actual text and stick to the script of that particular text. And usually the text definitely comes from a pretty large scale mindset. If you're, a person who's operating a citywide convention or a very, very large event. So typically those that are event professionals that really work on more smaller types of events can find some difficulty in learning the information because it can be hard to think about that bigger scope of events. So definitely just think of that as you are doing your studying. Some other tips I have for you is if you know someone, let's say perhaps you're a part of an industry organization and you know other people that are studying for their CMP, I would just say partner up with them. It can be very beneficial for you to get a study partner. Perhaps you can even share the cost of these books and work out a plan where you can swap books each week, especially if you're local. That might be something that could be helpful. Or just mere having someone to be able to study with and touch base with as you are preparing to take your examination. So that's another helpful tip. And I shared this in the last podcast episode, but consider a study group. Study groups can really help hold you accountable as well for studying for the exam. You can basically also come up with some learning partners within those study groups, and you can team up with them. And study groups also can help you have a wonderful experience, and you can meet new people who you can have friendships with that last a lifetime. Now, Planners on Purpose has a study group starting on Monday. Yes, on Monday. So if you're an event planner who wants their CMP in 2024, you're feeling you're in good shape with the application, consider joining a group of people that are already making commitments to elevating their professional development. It's been great to see how excited some of them are for taking on their CMP in 2024. And I'm excited to partner with them to get them over that finish line. So if you are an event professional that's looking to obtain your CMP, definitely consider the CMP study groups that we have going on starting on Monday, and I'll put that link also in the description. Well, friends, that's it. I hope you enjoyed this episode of the Planners on Purpose podcast. If you've taken this test before, let me know. Do you have any other tips that work well for you? Just share them in the comments or just send me a DM on Instagram. I would love to hear what worked well for you when you're studying. Until next time, please stay on purpose.
Well, that wraps it up for this episode. If you enjoyed the conversation, hit the like button and tell us how much you enjoyed the show by leaving a message in the comments. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next time.